My name is Delaney Cross, 32 years old. It was one of those late summer Sundays that clung to the skin, air heavy enough to make conversation feel like wading through warm water. My sister Amanda had insisted we all eat together. Long overdue, she'd texted with 3 sparkle emojis, as if a caption could fix years of looking the other way. She served frozen lasagna like it was a catered miracle. Our mother uncorked a discount bottle, already half gone when she arrived. Glenn, my stepdad, nursed his 3rd beer before the garlic bread even found the table. The dining room window rattled in a lazy breeze. Somewhere outside, a neighbor's dog barked twice and gave up. Inside, we were all performing. Amanda's smile a little too taut, Mom's laugh a half-second late, Glenn's grin turned toward me, measuring. We were supposed to be celebrating Savannah's grades, straight A's at a private school I'd paid for quietly every month to the tune of $900. That wasn't a flex. It was a ledger entry. I'd done it nearly 3 years, never asked for thanks, never made a speech. Just wanted a smart kid not to be boxed in by her mother's chaos. I'd also kept a rental in my name, so Amanda wouldn't bounce again. Paid water and trash, repaired the AC when it died in August. The family called it generosity. I called it triage. We sat. Mom launched into Ivy League predictions. Glenn performed a couple jokes about me being the career woman with the nice apartment. Amanda kept refilling her wine and smiling at something only she could see, that faraway glow she wears when she's already rewriting events for later. I tried to chew. The lasagna tasted like freezer burn and stubbornness. Savannah drifted behind me, so quietly I didn't feel her until cool fingers brushed my neck. I turned. She didn't meet my eyes, just reached without hesitation and plucked the left earring from my ear. Not playful, not curious, just took it like she was entitled to it. Metal pinched, a thin sting. I heard the tiny click of the back hitting tile. For a heartbeat, the table fell into a vacuum of sound. Then Savannah lifted the earring to the light. Mom says these are cheap knockoffs, she said, clear as a bell. You pretend they're real because no one ever gave you anything nice. She didn't blink. She bent the little oval backward until it snapped. Glenn barked laughter. Hands slapping the table. Mom covered her mouth, eyes crinkling with what she wanted to pass for shock. Amanda made a soft gasp like a bad actress in a community play, but the corner of her mouth tugged. The tell she gets when cruelty tastes like victory. Savannah watched me like she was waiting for my cue in a skit. I looked at the broken half in my palm. The room blurred at the edges, sound sharpening into the scrape of a fork, the clink of cheap stemware. The earrings were the last thing my father ever gave me. Pawn shop pearls for my graduation, his hands still rough from double shifts, his eyes watery, like he was embarrassed by the sentiment. He died 6 months later. Amanda didn't come to the funeral. I'd worn those earrings anyway, because grief needs anchors. I stood. Bathroom, I said, voice too even. Glenn called. Don't be so sensitive, the way men do when they want to make you feel childish for bleeding. I slid the bolt in the hallway bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. The fluorescent light buzzed. The glass had a hairline crack the length of my cheekbone. I pressed a paper towel to my ear. A bead of red bloomed like a punctuation mark I refused to read aloud. You will not cry, I told the stranger in the glass. Not here, not for them. The sink coughed and clanged. Pipes clicked like a metronome as the air conditioner stirred. In that cramped mirror room, I could hear my heartbeat in my teeth. I washed my hands, dabbed my ear, practiced the blank face I used to wear to performance reviews, where the men smiled and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to try smiling more?" Then I unlocked the door and sat back down at that table like I'd never left. Amanda tilted her head. You okay, Lainey? Thanks for lunch, I said, and stood again. I collected my purse, my keys, the broken earring half, small as a secret, then walked out into sun so bright it made my eyes water. It still didn't count as crying. That night, my apartment felt like a waiting room after the fire alarm stops. Quiet, a little scorched, full of shadows that look like things that aren't there. I set the earring half on my kitchen counter and opened my laptop. The tuition portal remembered my login like muscle memory. Autopay. Active. The page showed 3 years of payments, identical green check marks marching across the months. I hovered over cancel. My finger trembled once, not from doubt, but from the weight of rewriting a habit. Click. Are you sure? The box asked, bland and polite, as if it had just watched my niece snap my father out of my ear. Yes, I typed, confirm. The button turned gray. The confirmation glowed. Autopay canceled. No speech, no rage text, a clean incision. I picked up my phone and typed one line to Amanda. You've just lost the $900 a month permanently. Sent. Read at 10:41 p.m. No reply. Silence can be louder than any argument if you're finally willing to hear it. I made tea I didn't drink and rinsed the mug anyway. Old habits. Tidy what you touched. Leave no trace of needing anything. Then I opened the justifications folder in my photos. Screenshots of texts, dates of rent transfers, receipts for the AC repair, a snap of Savannah's last progress report where she'd written thank you on a sticky note with a doodled star. Tiny ledger lines to keep me from gaslighting myself when the storm came. I added tonight's confirmation. Evidence isn't for them, it's for me. For the hour I start to doubt the memory of my own bruises. I lay in the dark and let the room hum. Refrigerator, hallway pipes, distant siren. I thought about Savannah's face, the half second before she broke the earring, when her eyes flicked to Amanda's. There it was, the thread. Not confidence, not malice, but waiting. For approval. For permission. For someone else's smile to tell her who she was allowed to be. I filed it like a clue. In the morning, Amanda didn't text. Mom didn't call. The group chat lay embalmed in last week's grocery list. I jogged along the river and timed my breathing to the cadence of my own footsteps, a small reminder that I could set my own pace. The office smelled like toner and ambition. I finished a report, answered 3 emails, said no to a meeting that had no agenda. The world rudely kept going. In the late afternoon, I held the broken earring and pictured my father's hands again. The way he'd turned the pawn shop box over like it might bite him if he opened it wrong. It's not much, he'd said, throat-catching. It's enough, I'd said, meaning not the small pearls, but the choosing. He'd shown up with something he could carry, and sometimes that's all love is. Weight in the pocket you don't have to bear alone. At dusk, the sky bruised purple over the rooftops. I set the earring half in a tiny dish, next to a button from a coat I no longer owned, and a smooth stone I'd pocketed from a beach the year I learned to leave. My phone vibrated with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail and didn't check it. There would be time for performances later. Rage, guilt, appeals to blood. Tonight, there would be only the sound of my own refrigerator singing, the click of my own lamp switching off when I decided bedtime had arrived. Before I slept, I imagined the dining room table again, but emptier. What happened if the wallet stopped attending? If the person who remembered birthdays and brought cakes and filled gaps simply left them to discover the cost of their own appetites? I pictured Glenn's smirk curdling when the second beer wanted to become a third on someone else's tab. I pictured Mom's laugh failing when there was no soft target to triangulate around. I pictured Amanda staring at a tuition portal she'd never seen, discovering how many clicks it took to sustain a fantasy. Then I pictured Savannah in a classroom that smelled like dry erase markers and lemon cleaner, choosing where to sit without checking her mother's face first. Somewhere in the building, pipes ticked like a metronome. I matched my breath to their evenness. Calm isn't the absence of noise. It's choosing which noises matter. The confirmation window still glowed on my laptop across the room, a lighthouse square on a dark desk. I didn't close it. I wanted to wake and see it again, to remind myself that even quiet acts can be decisive. The cursor still hovered where my finger had been. It felt like a promise. I turned on my side and watched the room. Headlights slid across the ceiling and vanished. My phone buzzed once, then settled. Tomorrow there would be texts from Mom about how Savannah is just a child. There would be a one-word seriously from Amanda, efficient and empty as a paper cup. There would be Glenn's bark in a bubble, grow up. There would be social media captions about independence, latte foam hearts, and earnest hashtags. There would be a grocery store aisle standoff that smelled like freezer burn and old peas. There would be a midnight call I didn't know I was waiting for. Tonight there was this, a small broken thing in a dish, and a larger, unbroken thing in my chest I'd finally named. Not anger, not even hurt, resolve. Across the room, the screen timed out and went dark. I didn't need its glow anymore. I had the shape of the decision in my tongue and teeth. Tomorrow I could defend it with words. Tonight it defended itself. The last sound before sleep was the faint click of the fridge cycling, and the quieter click inside my head as a door I'd kept open for too long finally met its frame and caught. On the desk, cold and resolute, the confirmation page waited to be woken by morning light. Autopay canceled, its pale rectangle shining like a verdict. By Monday evening, the silence broke. Not from Amanda. She was always the strategist, waiting to gauge how much damage the storm left before venturing outside. No, the first text came from Mom. A string of lines that made my chest tighten, not from guilt, but from the predictability of it all. You need to stop this nonsense. Savannah's just a child. She didn't mean it. A pause, then another bubble. You're really going to take away her education over an earring? Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not once did she mention the blood bead at my ear or the pawn shop box that had once sat in Dad's rough hands. Not once did she name what Savannah had actually done. She turned the knife into my ribs and then asked me why I was bleeding. I didn't answer. I screenshotted the whole thing, dropped it into my justifications folder, and closed the phone like I was shutting a vault. That night, Glenn chimed in. A single bubble that made me laugh so hard I startled my neighbor's cat through the window. So what? You're going to ruin her future because you got your feelings hurt? Grow up. Glenn, who never once signed a tuition check. Glenn, who left Amanda scrambling for rent until I stepped in. Glenn, whose only contribution to Savannah's school years was telling her to run it off when she sprained an ankle in gym class. I didn't answer him either. Silence is a blade if you know how to sharpen it. Tuesday morning, Amanda finally broke cover, a one-word text. Seriously, that was it. No apology, no explanation, not even a half-hearted excuse about stress or hormones or too much wine at lunch. Just seriously, like I'd forgotten to bring dip to a potluck. By Wednesday, she had upgraded from text to performance art. I woke to a message from a woman I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, hope everything's okay. Amanda said you two had a misunderstanding. She mentioned Savannah might not be going back to Burwood. What's going on? Misunderstanding. That was the word Amanda had chosen to script. She was rewriting humiliation into a quirky family squabble. I checked her Instagram out of morbid curiosity. There was Savannah at their chipped kitchen table, books stacked around her like props, holding up a peace sign. The caption, "Smart girls make their own paths. Education isn't about the price tag." The comments flooded in. Queen. So inspiring. Unschooling is the future. Amanda replied to each one with a red heart. I closed the app before bile rose in my throat. What she didn't post, the tuition portal turned off, the lease she'd ignored for 4 years, the AC unit I'd replaced with my own card. That was the story I still held in my pocket. By Friday, I decided to play my own quiet card. Amanda's lease had rolled into month-to-month over a year ago. I'd given her below-market rent because the alternative was her eviction notice taped to a stranger's door. That charity ended now. I contacted my property manager, and within 24 hours, the 60-day notice was drafted and delivered. No flourish, just business. Her response came in under 3 hours, long enough to feel deliberate. You are destroying your own family. Savannah is just a teenager. This isn't about an earring. This is about you being bitter and jealous. You've never had a real family, so you wouldn't understand what it's like to fight for your kids. You'll regret this when you're old and alone. Paragraphs of bile. The familiar rhythm. Guilt. Accusation. Prophecy. I forwarded the email into justifications, then shut my laptop with more calm than I expected. The next day I saw Mom in the grocery store. Freezer aisle. Carts squealing. I pretended to study bags of frozen peas, but she spotted me. She blocked the aisle like an oak. Come over for dinner, she said. Voice soft, but eyes hard. Amanda's been crying. Savannah's going through a tough age. Families fight, Delaney. This has gotten out of hand. I kept my hand on the freezer door handle, skin frosting from the cold. I'm not interested in patching anything up. She flinched. So you'll throw them away? That's it? I'm not holding a grudge, I said. I'm just done playing a role I never agreed to. She rolled her eyes, sharp as glass. Fine, keep your money. You'll see how far that gets you. I let the freezer door slam shut. Peas rattled. That was the end of that conversation. That night, I dreamed of Dad again. He was standing in the pawn shop, tapping his calloused fingers against the glass, debating whether the tiny pearls were too much or not enough. He turned, smiled at me with watery eyes. I woke with damp cheeks and didn't bother denying it. By the end of the second week, Amanda's curated mask began to slip. The Instagram captions about independence got louder, almost shrill. Unschooling is power. Some paths aren't paved with tuition. Posed photos of Savannah with untouched lattes stacked higher, while whispers found their way to me through back channels. A woman Amanda used to babysit for called, asking if I knew Amanda was homeschooling now, but needed help with supplies. An old coworker mentioned he'd heard from a neighbor that Savannah had been crying on the porch at night, while Amanda screamed into the phone inside. Then, one night, my phone rang at 11:30. Savannah's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She didn't start with hello. Her voice cracked through the dark. I didn't mean to break them. I didn't know they were real. I didn't know they mattered. Silence hung between us. I could hear her breath, uneven, like she was holding the phone under a blanket. Mom told me they were cheap, she whispered. She said if I teased you, maybe you'd feel guilty. Maybe you'd buy me things, a new MacBook, trips, clothes. She said you'd never cut us off. She said you liked playing the hero too much. The words slid through me like ice water. Savannah, I said slowly. Did she tell you where those earrings came from? A pause. No. So I told her. About Dad skipping meals. About the pawn shop box. About the graduation smile. About the funeral 6 months later. She didn't say anything for a long time. I thought the call had dropped. Then, barely a whisper, I'm sorry. I closed my eyes. I believed her. But I didn't say anything about tuition. Not yet. Not about the lease. Not about the things her mother was already burning to the ground. Take care of yourself, I said instead, and hung up. Afterward, I sat in the dark, the city outside my window flickering like a heartbeat. My phone buzzed once more, a message draft unsent, an email to Burwood's administrator. Subject line blinking, confidential, student assistance. My finger hovered, but I didn't press send. Not yet. The cursor blinked like a metronome in the silence. The morning after Savannah's call, I brewed coffee strong enough to bite my tongue and read her words again in memory. She said you liked playing the hero too much. I wondered how many times Amanda had rehearsed that line, how many nights she had whispered it like a curse in her daughter's ear. By noon, my property manager called. Amanda had shown up to the office demanding to know if the eviction notice was legal. She waved it around like a winning lottery ticket, claiming retaliation, threatening to go to the local paper. Wealthy sister kicks out struggling single mom, she'd pitched to the receptionist, like it was a headline waiting to happen. The manager had been professional, but his voice carried an edge when he relayed the scene. She's not going quietly, Delaney. You should be ready. Ready. That was the word Walter, my mentor at work, always used when he coached me through boardroom ambushes. Anticipate the angle, shore up the weakness, seal the breach. I called my attorney before the coffee cooled. I want Amanda's access to Dad's fund revoked, I said. That account was supposed to be for emergencies, car repairs, medical bills. I'd barely touched it. Amanda had drained it 6 times. Once for braces Savannah never got. Once for a business retreat in Scottsdale that turned out to be a weekend of cocktails and spa selfies. The rest vanished into the fog of her explanations. My attorney wasn't surprised. Send me the paperwork, he said. We'll shut the door. That evening, when I pulled into my building's garage, Amanda was waiting, leaning against the wall by the elevators, arms crossed, heels scuffed, a too bright smile stretched over her face like cellophane. I considered circling the block, but curiosity is its own leash. The elevator doors closed around us. She started in that syrupy voice she used when she wanted something. Lainey, I know you're upset. Savannah's at a difficult age. She didn't mean it. You know how teenagers are. I said nothing. The hum of the elevator filled the silence. Her smile tightened. Just give us a little more time. 3 months. 6 at most. Let me get things in order. I tilted my head. What exactly are you planning to get in order? She didn't answer. She just stared at me, lips twitching, eyes sharp as glass. Then she whispered something under her breath, a sound like static, louder the second time. You love this, don't you? Watching us fall apart makes you feel powerful. I turned toward her fully. You think I loved watching my father hand me pawn shop earrings with calloused hands? You think I love paying your rent while you smirk behind your glass of wine? No, Amanda, I don't love it, but I'll survive it. Will you? The elevator dinged. The doors opened. She didn't move. That wasn't about the earrings, she said suddenly. That was about you needing to be knocked down a peg. Her voice cracked at the edges. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw fear beneath the bravado. Then she walked out, heels clacking on tile, and tossed a final line over her shoulder. This isn't over. It never is with her. 2 weeks later, I learned Amanda and Savannah had moved into Mom's house. Mom called it temporary. I called it a pressure cooker. I imagined Amanda pacing in the guest room, Savannah curled up with earbuds, Mom whispering into the phone at night, trying to broker peace between daughters who no longer spoke the same language. Then came the barbecue. It was one of those neighborhood gatherings Mom guilted everyone into. Plastic chairs scattered across patchy grass, lukewarm hot dogs, Glenn's awful playlist buzzing out of a speaker. Amanda wore sunglasses and parked herself across the yard, pretending not to notice me. Savannah hovered close, not speaking much, but present, watching. Glenn was in his element, beer in hand, belly pushing against his shirt. He loved an audience, even if it was just neighbors pretending to laugh. In the middle of a conversation about nothing, weather, football, gossip, he lobbed it like a dart. Well, not all of us can be like Delaney. No kids, no partner, nothing to lose. The yard stilled. A few people chuckled nervously. Someone's fork scraped against a paper plate. Mom froze, her mouth half open. I stood. No shouting, no drama. Just a clean cut. Actually, I said, meeting his eyes, I do have something to lose. My patience. And it's gone. I turned, kissed Savannah on the forehead. Her skin was cool. Her breath hitched like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Then I thanked Mom for the invitation and walked out through the squeaky gate. Behind me, the music skipped. Glenn muttered something under his breath. But the moment had already broken. The next morning, my attorney emailed. All access terminated. Processed. The word glowed on my screen like a gavel strike. At Mom's house, a door slammed. I didn't need to be there to know it was Amanda's. The days after the barbecue stretched like taut wire. I half expected Amanda to storm my building again, to unleash another sugar-coated tirade about sisterhood and survival. Instead, what arrived was a letter. Folded once, tucked into my mailbox, with no return address, but the careful, rounded handwriting gave it away before I even opened it. Savannah. The paper smelled faintly of fabric softener, like she'd written it in secret and slipped it between clothes in her drawer before sneaking it out. Her words were deliberate, each line pressed hard enough to leave an imprint on the back page. She wrote that she'd been thinking about everything, the broken earring, the fallout, the endless arguments. She admitted she didn't know who to trust anymore. Amanda told her I'd gone crazy. Then she said I was jealous. Later, it turned into accusations of control. But, Savannah wrote, I remember you bringing me books every Christmas. I remember you standing at my science fair. I remember you buying me the sketch pad when I said I wasn't any good. She ended with the question that made my throat tighten. Can I still go back to Burwood? No mention of Amanda. No excuses. Just a girl asking if her future had to collapse because of someone else's pride. I didn't hesitate. That same afternoon, I emailed Burwood's administrator, explained that I would fund the year quietly, under special circumstances, requested Amanda be listed with no access or contact to the account, offered to pay extra to establish Savannah as an independent student. The administrator's reply was cautious but compassionate. We can accommodate, she wrote. Relief thudded through me like a drumbeat. 2 days later, another envelope slid under my door. This one was messier, ink bleeding where the pen had dug too deep, letters leaning like they'd been written through clenched teeth. Amanda. You're manipulating my daughter, forcing her to choose sides. You're a woman without a family trying to steal mine. You're nothing but a wallet with a grudge. The last line had 3 underlines. I read it once, twice, then tucked it into justifications. The words didn't sting. They just sounded tired. Amanda still thought insults were currency. That evening, my phone rang. Mom. Her voice, when she spoke, carried something I'd never heard from her before. Real tears. Not dramatic, performative sobs. The kind of crying that comes from bones, not from theater. She said Amanda and Glenn had exploded in the driveway. Neighbors' porch lights blinked on. Glenn screamed about money, Amanda screamed back, and Savannah locked herself in the guest room. Glenn stormed off and didn't return until midnight. It feels like everything is falling apart, Mom whispered. It's not falling apart, I said quietly. It's just showing the cracks that were always there. There was silence on the line. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. Thank you, Delaney, for cutting them off. I sat very still, the phone warm against my ear. She repeated it. Thank you for doing what I couldn't. Amanda needed to know what it's like to stand alone. Savannah needed to see what manipulation looks like when it comes from someone you love. Her voice wavered. And I needed to admit I should have stood up for you that Sunday. I knew it was wrong. I let Amanda spin her story because it was easier than admitting the truth. I didn't cry, but something inside me, coiled tight for decades, loosened. The following week, Burwood's administrator confirmed Savannah's enrollment. Confidential, protected, tuition covered for the year. I closed the laptop with a steady hand. Later that night, as the city lights blinked like watchful eyes outside my window, I thought of Savannah again. I imagined her at the kitchen table with headphones on, sketching quietly in the margins of her notebooks. I imagined her packing her bag for Burwood, sliding the acceptance letter between her textbooks like a talisman. And I imagined Amanda, somewhere in that same house, staring at a door her daughter had locked, wondering when control had slipped through her fingers. What I didn't imagine, but would later learn, was that Savannah had stumbled across something else. A text thread left open on Amanda's phone, a message from Glenn after that infamous Sunday lunch. Big scene equal big guilt equals bigger checks. Make it dramatic. She'll never cut us off. Savannah tore the printout into pieces and flushed it down the toilet. She didn't tell Amanda. She didn't tell Mom. She kept it like a shard of glass hidden in her pocket, a reminder of who had really staged the play. For now, she kept the secret. But secrets have a way of surfacing when the timing cuts deepest. I didn't know any of this yet. All I knew was that the first battle was over and the lines were drawn. Savannah had chosen to reach across the ashes. Amanda had chosen rage. Glenn had chosen disappearance. And Mom, for the first time in her life, had chosen honesty. I sat in the quiet of my apartment, the broken earring half glinting in its dish, and thought, the game board is shifting. And for once, I wasn't the pawn. Autumn arrived with that brittle chill that makes the air taste sharper, the kind that feels like it can cut through lies as easily as leaves. Savannah walked back into Burwood Academy quietly. No fanfare, no Instagram captions about choosing her own path. Just a girl sliding into her seat with a schedule tucked into her backpack, eyes a little heavier but still determined. A guidance counselor later emailed me, saying she'd noticed Savannah lingering after class to ask questions about scholarships. That email ended with, "She's bright and she's trying." I read it 3 times and saved it in the justifications folder, not as evidence this time, but as proof something was worth fighting for. Amanda, on the other hand, was unraveling. Her curated feed grew louder, desperate captions pasted over staged photos in thrifted blazers. Unschooling warriors rise. We don't need your system. The likes dwindled. The comments slowed. Friends stopped replying. One by one, the cheerleaders vanished, leaving her clapping for herself in an empty room. Glenn wasn't around to clap either. Word slipped through a neighbor that he'd gone to stay with a buddy. In reality, it meant he'd slithered out when the rent came due and the arguments turned into accusations. Mom called me late one night, her voice a whisper, as if Amanda might be eavesdropping through the walls. They fight about everything now. Groceries, gas. Who's supposed to pay the electric bill? Savannah keeps to herself. I don't know how much longer I can... Her voice cracked. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. A week later, I got another letter. Savannah again. Folded neat, her handwriting steadier this time, like she wanted to show she wasn't breaking. Inside was a tiny repair box from the school jeweler's club. I saved my cafeteria tips, she wrote. It's not the original, but it holds. Taped inside was my earring, glued back together. Imperfect, but whole. My throat closed. It wasn't about the pearl. It was about the attempt, the steady hands of a girl learning that fixing matters more than faking. Meanwhile, Glenn had found a new stage, the family group chat. He lobbed snide remarks like grenades. Some people think money makes them better. Easy to judge when you've never raised a kid. He never named me, but everyone knew. It was at another gathering, a half-hearted barbecue, Mom's attempt at normalcy, that he finally crossed a line in public. Plastic chairs sagged in the yard, paper plates slick with grease. Amanda wore sunglasses again, pretending she hadn't lost 10 pounds of rage in a month. Savannah hovered close to me, quiet but present. Glenn, half drunk, smirked and said, "Well, not all of us can be like Delaney. No kids, no partner, nothing to lose." The yard stilled. Forks froze. A neighbor's toddler stopped mid-cry. I stood, calm as a chess player moving a final piece. "Actually," I said, voice level, "I do have something to lose. My patience. And it's gone." I bent, kissed Savannah's forehead, and turned to Mom. "Thank you for inviting me." Then I left through the squeaky gate. Behind me, the music skipped. Someone coughed. Glenn muttered, but nobody laughed. The next day, I filed the final paperwork with my attorney. Amanda's access to everything tied to me, gone. Co-signed accounts dissolved. Rental locks changed. Inheritance fund sealed. My life, scrubbed clean of loopholes she could slip through. But I wasn't done. I wrote Mom a letter. I told her I loved her. I told her I understood the mess she'd been tangled in, that I forgave her for not standing up for me when I was younger. But I also told her I was done playing the fixer. No more holidays where I footed the bill. No more birthdays where my gifts erased Amanda's absence. No more pretending we were a family in anything more than blood. She wrote back weeks later. A short letter, shaky handwriting. She said she was sorry. Said she should have seen it sooner. And then, one line that seared itself into me. Sometimes the one who finally says no is the one who loved the longest. Savannah returned to Burwood in the fall. Quiet, determined, carrying the repaired earring in her pocket like a talisman. She still sends me letters every month. Drawings, snapshots of projects, stories about her classes. One ended with, "Thank you for teaching me how to stand up. I'll never forget it." I haven't seen Amanda since that barbecue. Word drifts to me. She was denied from 2 rentals. Glenn's out of the picture, and she drags her bitterness like a suitcase too heavy for one person to carry. Mom says they barely speak. I don't dig for details. Because here's the truth they never understood. I wasn't taking anything from them. I just stopped giving. And when the lights I used to pay for went dark, they finally heard the echo of their own lives without me. That's what happens when you mistake someone's kindness for weakness. Eventually, the one holding the switch remembers it's theirs and chooses which rooms stay lit.